My name is Jerome Matthews. I'm 57 years old. And for 3 years, I was the only black executive at Whitmore Associates, a mid-sized consulting firm in downtown Atlanta. 3 years of hell. 3 years of watching them try every trick in the book to push me out. Sabotage. Lies. Backstabbing. Discrimination so subtle it was almost elegant. Almost. They thought they were clever. They thought I'd just quit. Walk away. Disappear like the 3 black employees before me who couldn't take the pressure. But I'm not built like that. See, I grew up in the projects of Detroit in the 70s. My mama raised 4 kids on a nurse's salary after my father walked out when I was 5 years old. I learned early that the world doesn't hand you anything. You take it. You earn it. You fight for it. So when they came at me, I didn't run. I studied them. I documented everything. And when the time was right, I didn't just push back. I dismantled them. Piece by piece. This is the story of how I survived corporate warfare and how I made sure everyone who tried to destroy me paid the price. Every single one of them. Let me take you back to where this all started. Not just the job, but the journey that got me there. Spring of 2018. I'd been working in corporate consulting for 25 years at that point. Started at the bottom right out of Georgia State University. I remember my graduation day. May of 1993. I was 22 years old. First person in my family to get a college degree. My mama was in the audience crying. She'd worked double shifts at Grady Memorial Hospital to help me pay for books. My 2 sisters were there. My little brother. All of us packed into that arena watching me walk across that stage. I felt like I'd conquered the world. Then reality hit. While my white classmates were getting offers at the big firms, McKinsey, Deloitte, Bain, I was sending out hundreds of resumes and getting maybe 3 callbacks. And those 3? They were all for entry-level positions that paid $30,000 a year in cities where that barely covered rent. I took one anyway. Small accounting firm in Midtown Atlanta. Palmer and Associates. 15 people. Cramped office that smelled like old coffee and desperation. But it was a start. I worked there for 3 years. Learned the basics. Double entry bookkeeping. Financial statements. Tax preparation. The owner, Mr. Palmer, was a white man in his 60s who'd been doing small business accounting since the 70s. He was fair to me. Not warm, but fair. He saw that I worked hard and he gave me opportunities. By my 2nd year, I was managing client accounts. By my 3rd year, I was bringing in new business. Then one day in '96, Mr. Palmer called me into his office. "Jerome, sit down. I need to talk to you." My heart sank. I thought I was getting fired. Instead, he slid a folder across his desk. "I've been thinking about retiring. My kids don't want the business. I'm getting old and tired. I want to offer you a partnership. You buy in over 5 years. Eventually take over the whole thing." I was stunned. "Mr. Palmer, I don't have the capital for a partnership." He smiled. "I'm not asking for money up front. You'll buy in with sweat equity. Keep doing what you're doing. Build the client base. In 5 years, the business is yours." I should have jumped at it. It was an incredible opportunity. But I was young. Ambitious. I looked at that cramped office and thought, is this it? Is this as far as I go? So I made a decision that still haunts me sometimes. I turned him down. Thanked him profusely. Told him I needed to see what else was out there. He was disappointed but understood. 6 months later, I left for a bigger firm. That bigger firm was Bradshaw Consulting. 150 employees. Offices in 3 cities. They brought me in as a senior analyst. The pay was better. $60,000 a year. The work was more interesting. Corporate restructuring. Mergers and acquisitions. I was learning how big companies operated. But I was also learning something else. I was learning that no matter how good I was, there was a ceiling. An invisible one, but real as concrete. I'd watch white colleagues get promoted after 2 years. I'd been there 4 years and was still in the same position. When I asked about advancement, I'd get vague answers. "You're doing great, Jerome. Keep it up. Just be patient. Your time will come." But it never did. Not there. So I moved again. This time to Hendricks & Cole. Even bigger. 300 employees. Offices in 8 cities. They hired me as a manager. $75,000 a year. I was 32 years old. By then, I was married to Denise. We'd gotten married in '97. She was working as a teacher. We just bought our first house. A small 3-bedroom in College Park. We were building a life. I worked at Hendricks for 6 years. Rose to director of operations. Led teams. Managed projects. Brought in millions in revenue. But I kept hitting that ceiling. I'd see people who'd been there half as long get promoted above me. When I asked why, I'd get explanations that didn't quite add up. You need more experience with client relations. You need to work on your leadership style. You need to be more of a team player. Code words. All of them. By the time I was 40, I'd worked at 5 different firms. Each one bigger than the last. Each one promising opportunity. Each one delivering the same result. I was good enough to bring in business. Good enough to fix problems. Good enough to train the people who'd eventually be promoted above me. But never good enough for the corner office. Then in 2010, something shifted. The economy was recovering from the recession. Companies were desperate for talent. For the first time in my career, I had leverage. Hendricks offered me senior vice president. $120,000 a year. Real authority. I stayed there for 8 years. And for the first time, I felt like I was making real progress. I had a team of 30 people. Budget authority. Decision-making power. I wasn't in the C-suite yet, but I could see it from where I was standing. That's when I got the call from Whitmore Associates. It came on a Tuesday afternoon in March of 2018. I was in my office reviewing a contract when my assistant buzzed me. "Mr. Matthews, there's a Richard Whitmore on the line for you. Says it's regarding a career opportunity." I almost didn't take it. I was comfortable at Hendricks. But curiosity got the better of me. "This is Jerome Matthews." "Jerome, Richard Whitmore here. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." "Not at all. What can I do for you?" "I've been following your career for some time now. Very impressive track record. I'm the CEO of Whitmore Associates. We're a consulting firm here in Atlanta. I'm sure you've heard of us." I had. Whitmore was well known in Atlanta business circles. Mid-sized firm. Strong reputation. Very white. I'd be lying if I said that thought didn't cross my mind immediately. "Go on," I said. "We're expanding our operations division and we need someone with your experience and expertise. I'd like to meet with you. Discuss the opportunity. Are you available for lunch this week?" We met 2 days later at the Capitol Grill in Buckingham. Expensive place. The kind where the servers know your name and your drink order before you sit down. Richard Whitmore was already there when I arrived. Sitting at a corner table. Mid-60s. Silver hair perfectly styled. Navy suit that probably cost more than my first car. He stood when I approached. Extended his hand. "Jerome. Thank you for coming." We shook hands. His grip was firm. Practiced. We sat down. Ordered drinks. He ordered a scotch. Top shelf. I got iced tea. I was working later and I wanted a clear head. We made small talk for a few minutes. He asked about my family. I told him about Denise. About our 2 kids. Marcus was 15 at the time, studying for his driver's test. Our daughter Jasmine was 12. Just started middle school. All the normal parent stuff. Richard smiled and nodded. Said his own kids were grown. One was a lawyer in New York. The other was doing something in finance. Living in San Francisco. We're empty nesters now, he said. Just me and my wife rattling around in that big house in Brookhaven. Then he got down to business. Jerome, I'm going to be honest with you. Whitmore Associates is at a crossroads. We've been successful for a long time. 3 generations. My grandfather started this firm in 1953. We've weathered recessions, market crashes, everything. But the world is changing. Our client base is changing. And frankly, we need to change too. I listened. Didn't interrupt. He continued. When I look at our leadership team, I see a lot of the same. Same backgrounds. Same schools. Same country clubs. And that's not necessarily bad, but it's limited. We need fresh perspective. New ideas. Someone who can challenge our assumptions and push us forward. He paused. Took a sip of his scotch. And if I'm being completely transparent, we need to diversify our leadership. The optics aren't great. We have 200 employees and our executive team is entirely white. Our clients are asking questions. Our younger employees are asking questions. And they're right to ask. There it was. The thing I've been waiting for him to say. Optics. Diversify. The words that meant I wasn't just being hired for my skills. I was being hired to be the black face in the brochure. But here's the thing. I was 51 years old. I'd spent 30 years navigating these waters. I knew the game. And I also knew that once I was in the door, I could prove my worth. Make them see me as more than a diversity hire. So I swallowed my pride and asked the question. What's the position? Vice President of Strategic Operations. You'd oversee all operational functions. Project management. Resource allocation. Process optimization. You'd have a team of 12 reporting directly to you. And you'd be part of the executive leadership team. Report directly to me. And the compensation? $175,000 base salary. Performance bonuses up to 30%. Stock options. Full benefits. Corner office. He said that last part with a smile. Like the corner office was supposed to seal the deal. What's the catch? I asked. He looked surprised. Catch? There's always a catch, Richard. You're offering me a significant step up. More money. More authority. More visibility. So what's the catch? He sat back. Steadied me for a moment. Then he smiled. I like you, Jerome. You're direct. No games. All right. The catch is this. You're going to face resistance. Some of our people have been here a long time. They're comfortable with how things are. And you're going to come in and shake things up. That's what I need you to do. But it won't be easy. You'll need thick skin. I've got thick skin, I said. I've been the only black person in the room my entire career. I know how to handle resistance. Good. Because I'm not going to lie to you. There are people on my team who aren't happy about this hire. They think I should have promoted from within. Given the job to someone who's been here longer. But I don't care what they think. I need someone who can actually do the job. And that's you. We talked for another hour. He laid out his vision for the company. Talked about growth projections, new markets, strategic partnerships. It was ambitious, exciting. And by the time lunch was over, I'd made my decision. When do you want me to start? I asked. How's June 1st? That gives you time to wrap up at Hendricks and take a week or two off before you start here. June 1st it is. We shook hands again. He paid the check. As we walked out, he put his hand on my shoulder. Jerome, I'm glad you're joining us. You're going to do great things at Whitmore. I believed him. I really did. I went home that night and told Denise everything. She was excited. Proud. We celebrated with a nice dinner. Opened a bottle of wine we'd been saving. The kids were happy because it meant we could finally afford to take that trip to Disney World we'd been promising them for years. Everything felt right. Like all those years of struggle were finally paying off. I gave my notice at Hendricks 2 weeks later. My boss was disappointed but understanding. Said I'd always have a place there if things didn't work out. I thanked him, but I wasn't planning on coming back. This was my shot. My chance to finally break through that ceiling. I started at Whitmore on June 4th, 2018. A Monday. I remember walking into that building for the first time as an employee. 15 stories. Glass and steel. Modern. Impressive. The lobby had these massive photographs of Atlanta landmarks. The kind of art that was expensive but didn't say anything. I took the elevator to the 14th floor. That's where the executive offices were. The receptionist, a young white woman with blonde hair and a practiced smile, greeted me. You must be Mr. Matthews. Welcome to Whitmore. Mr. Whitmore asked me to show you to your office. She walked me down a hallway. Doors on either side. Names on plaques. Todd Brennan, Vice President of Client Relations. Margaret Chen, Chief Financial Officer. Kyle Henderson, Senior Vice President of Human Resources. And at the end of the hall, the corner office. My office. Jerome Matthews, Vice President of Strategic Operations. The plaque was already up. The office was bigger than any workspace I'd ever had. Floor-to-ceiling windows. View of downtown Atlanta. Mahogany desk. Leather chair. Bookshelves. A conference table that seated 6. This is incredible, I said. The receptionist smiled. Mr. Whitmore spares no expense for his executives. There's a welcome packet on your desk. Your computer login information, building access card, parking pass, all of that. If you need anything, just call extension 221. That's me. I'm Brenda. Thank you, Brenda. She left. I stood there for a moment, taking it all in. Then I sat down in that leather chair. Put my hands on that mahogany desk. And thought, I made it. I actually made it. The first week was orientation. Meeting the team. Learning the systems. Getting up to speed on current projects. My direct reports were a mix. Some had been there for years. Others were relatively new. The most senior was a guy named Patrick Donnelly. 52 years old. White. Been at Whitmore for 18 years. He was polite but cool. Answered my questions but didn't volunteer much information. I could tell he was sizing me up. Waiting to see if I was competent or just a diversity hire who'd be gone in 6 months. The youngest on my team was Shanice Williams. 26 years old. Black woman. Sharp as they come. She'd been at Whitmore for 2 years. Junior analyst. When we met, I could see the relief in her eyes. Finally, someone who looks like me. We bonded quickly. She became my eyes and ears in the company. Told me things the others wouldn't. Like how there'd been another black executive 5 years ago. A woman named Lisa Harrison. Director of Marketing. She'd lasted 8 months before quitting. Said the environment was toxic. That people undermined her constantly. That she couldn't get anything done because no one would support her initiatives. I filed that information away. Made a mental note to be careful. But I was optimistic. Richard seemed genuine. The work was interesting. And I'd faced worse before. The first 3 months went smoothly. I focused on learning the business, understanding the processes, building relationships. I had weekly one-on-ones with Richard. He was supportive, encouraging, told me I was doing exactly what he'd hoped. We had executive team meetings every Monday morning. That's where I met the rest of the leadership. Todd Brennan was impossible to miss. Tall, probably 6'3". Former college basketball player. He had that jock energy. Loud. Confident. Took up space. He was 42 years old and had been at Whitmore for 8 years. He ran the client relations division. Brought in most of the new business. Richard loved him. Called him the golden boy. Todd made it clear from the first meeting that he thought he should have gotten my job. Never said it directly, but I could see it in his body language. The way he'd talk over me. Dismiss my suggestions. Make little comments about how things were done at Whitmore. As if I didn't understand because I was new. Margaret Chin was different. 53 years old. Taiwanese American. Harvard MBA. She'd been at Whitmore for 12 years. Chief Financial Officer. She was brilliant. No question. She could look at a spreadsheet and spot problems in seconds. But she was cold. Calculating. She reminded me of a chess player. Always thinking 3 moves ahead. Never showing her hand. In meetings, she'd listen quietly. Take notes. Then she'd go to Richard privately and plant seeds of doubt about whatever decision was made. I didn't figure that out until later, but I should have seen it coming. Kyle Henderson was the enforcer. 48 years old. White. Former college football player at Auburn. Blew out his knee junior year and ended up in business school. He'd been at Whitmore for 10 years. Senior VP of Human Resources. Kyle's job was to keep the company out of legal trouble. He knew employment law inside and out. Knew exactly how far they could push without crossing the line. He was friendly to my face. Always smiling. Always asking how I was adjusting. But there was something off about him. Something that made me uneasy. The 3 of them, Todd, Margaret, and Kyle, were tight. They'd been there for years. They had history. Inside jokes. Shared references. They'd go to lunch together. Play golf on weekends. Their families knew each other. They were a unit. And I was the outsider. But for those first 3 months, I didn't worry about it. I was too busy trying to prove myself. I dove into the work. Identified inefficiencies in our project management system. Streamlined processes. Cut costs without cutting quality. By September, we'd saved the company close to $300,000. Richard was thrilled. At the quarterly board meeting, he praised my work publicly. Said I was exactly what the company needed. I felt validated. Like I'd earned my place. That's when things started to change. It began small. I'd send an email to the executive team about a meeting. Everyone would respond except Todd. Then the day of the meeting, he wouldn't show up. I'd follow up. He'd say he never got the invite, even though I had the read receipt proving he'd opened it. Or I'd put together a presentation. Save it on the shared drive. The next morning, it would be gone. IT would say it must have been a glitch. Happened twice in 1 week. Or I'd make a suggestion in the Monday morning meeting. Something about reorganizing our client service model to improve response times. Todd would shoot it down immediately. say it wouldn't work, that I didn't understand how our clients operated. Then 3 weeks later, he proposed the exact same thing. And everyone would act like it was genius. Richard would say, "Todd, that's brilliant. Let's move forward with that." I'd sit there, biting my tongue, watching them praise him for my idea. At first, I thought I was being paranoid, that I was reading too much into normal office politics. But Shanice confirmed it. "Mr. Matthews, they're doing it on purpose. People are talking. I hear things. They don't like that you're here. They think you got the job because you're black, not because you're qualified." "Who's saying that?" I asked. She hesitated. "I can't name names. But it's not just a few people. It's a lot of them." I needed to be smart about this. So I started documenting every email, every meeting, every conversation. I created a folder on my personal computer at home. Backed everything up. If they were going to try to push me out, I was going to have evidence. October was when the real problem started. We had a major client. Hargrove Retail. National chain. $50 billion a year in revenue. They were struggling with supply chain issues and brought us in to help. It was a $12 million contract. The biggest the company had landed in 3 years. Richard assigned me to lead the project. It was a huge opportunity. If I pulled this off, it would cement my position, make me indispensable. I put together a team. Shanice, Patrick, 3 other analysts. We worked around the clock, conducted site visits, analyzed data, identified bottlenecks, developed solutions. It took 6 weeks, but we delivered a comprehensive restructuring plan. The client loved it. The CEO of Hargrove personally called Richard to say it was the best consulting work they'd ever received. Richard called me into his office, closed the door. "Jerome, I just got off the phone with Bill Hargrove. He's thrilled. Said you and your team knocked it out of the park. I'm proud of you. This is exactly the kind of work we need." "Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. I mean it. You've proven yourself. You belong here. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." It was a strange thing to say. Like he knew people were already telling me otherwise. But I took it as a compliment. Went back to my office feeling good. That feeling lasted about 2 hours. Then I got an email from Todd. Subject line, Hargrove Project Debrief. The email said, "Jerome, great work on Hargrove. However, I've received some feedback from the client that there were communication issues during the project. They felt that some of their concerns weren't adequately addressed. I think we should meet to discuss how we can improve our client communication protocols going forward. Let me know your availability. Todd." I read it 3 times. Communication issues? Bill Hargrove had just called Richard to praise our work. What communication issues? I forwarded the email to Shanice. Asked her if she'd heard anything from the client about problems. She responded immediately, "No." Everyone I spoke to at Hargrove was extremely happy. They've already asked if we can help with another division. This is fake. I knew it was. But I also knew I had to respond professionally. I emailed Todd back, "Todd, thank you for the note. I'm surprised to hear there were communication issues as the feedback I received from Hargrove was overwhelmingly positive. Can you be more specific about what concerns were raised and by whom? I'd like to address them directly with the client." Jerome. He never responded. Instead, 2 days later, there was an executive meeting. Richard, Margaret, Kyle, Todd, and me. Richard started. I wanted to get everyone together to discuss the Hargrove project. Overall, it was a huge success. But I've been told there were some concerns about communication. Jerome, Can you speak to that? I was careful. Measured. Richard, I'm not aware of any communication issues. The client feedback I received was entirely positive. Bill Hargrove personally told me the team did excellent work. If there were concerns, I'd like to know specifically what they were so we can address them. Todd jumped in. I've heard from a few of their team members that they felt left out of key decisions. That the process moved too fast without adequate input. Can you provide names? I asked. Who specifically said that? I'd like to reach out to them directly. Todd hesitated. I don't want to put anyone on the spot. But the feedback was consistent. I could feel my anger rising, but I kept my voice calm. Todd, with respect, if we're going to discuss concerns about my project management, I need specifics. Otherwise, this feels like we're addressing a problem that doesn't exist. Margaret spoke up. Jerome, no one is attacking your work. We're just trying to ensure that our processes are as strong as possible. This is about continuous improvement. It wasn't about continuous improvement. It was about undermining me. Making sure that even when I succeeded, there was a caveat. An asterisk next to my name. But Richard seemed to buy it. Let's do this. Jerome, can you put together a brief report on the communication protocols you used for Hargrove? Just so we have documentation. And going forward, let's make sure we're looping in all stakeholders at every stage. Sounds good? It wasn't good. But I nodded. Sure, Richard. I'll have that report to you by end of week. The meeting ended. As we filed out, Todd caught up to me in the hallway. Hey, Jerome. No hard feelings, right? I'm just trying to make sure we're all on the same page. I looked at him. Saw the smirk behind his professional smile. Yeah, Todd. No hard feelings. But I knew. Right then, I knew. This wasn't going to stop. They were going to come at me again and again until I either quit or they found a reason to fire me. That night, I told Denise everything. We were sitting in our living room. The kids were asleep. I was exhausted. Frustrated. Baby, they're trying to push me out. She put her hand on mine. Tell me exactly what's happening. So I did. Laid out the whole pattern. The missing emails. The stolen ideas. The fake complaints. The constant undermining. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You've been fighting your whole life, Jerome. You've earned everything you have. Don't you dare let them take this from you. But if you're going to stay, you can't keep playing defense. You need to start gathering evidence. Build a case. Because if they're really trying to push you out, they're not going to stop. And when the time comes, you need to be ready to fight back. Are you ready to do that?" I thought about it. Thought about walking away. Starting over somewhere else. But I was tired of running. Tired of letting them win. Yes. I'm ready. So I started building my case. Every email that went unanswered, I documented. Every meeting I was excluded from, I noted. Every idea that was stolen, I tracked. I created a timeline. A pattern. And slowly, over the next few months, the picture became clear. This wasn't random. This was coordinated. Todd, Margaret, and Kyle were working together. They had a plan. And the plan was simple, make me miserable enough that I'd quit. But I wasn't going to quit. And I was about to turn the tables on all of them. November came. Then December. The holidays. The company had a Christmas party at the Ritz-Carlton. Open bar. Fancy dinner. Awards for top performers. My division won the award for most revenue generated. Richard called me up to the stage. Handed me a plaque. Made a speech about how I was exactly what Whitmore needed. Fresh perspective. New ideas. Strong leadership. Everyone applauded. But I could see Todd in the crowd. Arms crossed. Not clapping. Just staring at me with barely concealed contempt. After the ceremony, I was standing at the bar getting a drink when Margaret approached. Jerome. Congratulations on the award. Your team did excellent work this year. Thank you, Margaret. We're just getting started. She smiled. Took a sip of her wine. You know, Jerome, you made quite an impression this year. But I wonder if you've thought about the long term. What do you mean? This company has a culture. A way of doing things. It's been built over 3 generations. Change is good, but too much change too fast can be disruptive. Are you suggesting I'm being disruptive? Not at all. I'm just saying that sometimes it's important to understand the history of a place before trying to reshape it. You've been here 6 months. Some of us have been here much longer. I got the message. Know your place. Don't push too hard. Don't challenge the old guard. I smiled back at her. I appreciate the advice, Margaret. But I was hired to make changes. And that's exactly what I'm going to keep doing. Her smile didn't falter, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Calculation. She was already planning her next move. The holidays passed. January 2019 arrived. That's when things escalated. It started with my assistant. Her name was Kelly. Young white woman. 24 years old. She'd been assigned to me when I started. She was competent. Professional. But in January, she started acting strange. She'd avoid eye contact. Take longer to respond to requests. Make mistakes she'd never made before. One day, I asked her directly, "Kelly, is everything okay? You seem distracted." She hesitated. Then, quietly, she said, "Mr. Matthews, I've been asked to keep track of your schedule and report back to Kyle." What? She looked uncomfortable. Kyle came to me last month. Said it was a routine HR thing. That he wanted to make sure new executives were managing their time effectively. But he's been asking very specific questions. Who you meet with? How long your meetings last? What you're working on? I felt my stomach drop. They were surveilling me. Did you tell him anything? I had to, she said. He's HR. I thought it was official. I'm sorry. It's not your fault, Kelly. Thank you for telling me. From that moment on, I knew I couldn't trust anyone in that building. I started having sensitive conversations off-site. Coffee shops. Restaurants. Anywhere but the office. I also started paying closer attention to my computer. One morning, I came in early. Opened my laptop. Noticed that files had been accessed overnight. Files I hadn't touched. Someone had been going through my work. I called IT. Asked if there was any way to see who'd accessed my files. The IT guy, a young kid named Marcus, pulled up the logs. "Mr. Matthews, it looks like your files were accessed from Kyle Henderson's workstation at 8:43 p.m. last night." I took a screenshot of the log. Added it to my growing file of evidence. Kyle was not only having my assistant spy on me, he was going through my computer after hours. This was beyond office politics. This was corporate espionage. February came. Then March. The attacks intensified. I'd be in meetings and Todd would openly question my judgment. Challenge my recommendations. One time, in front of the entire executive team, he said, "Jerome, I'm just not sure you have a clear understanding of how our clients think. Maybe it's because you haven't been in consulting as long as some of us." I'd been in consulting for 25 years. Longer than Todd. But I didn't take the bait. Just calmly explained my reasoning. Backed it up with data. Made him look foolish. But the damage was done. Richard didn't defend me. Just moved on to the next agenda item. Another time, Margaret questioned a budget proposal I'd submitted. Said the numbers didn't add up. I walked her through the calculations line by line. Proved they were correct. She apologized, said she must have been looking at an old version. But again, the implication was planted. Jerome can't do math. Jerome makes mistakes. It was death by 1,000 cuts. And it was working. By late March, I was exhausted. The stress was affecting me physically. I wasn't sleeping well. I'd lost weight. Denise was worried. Baby, you need to take care of yourself. This job is killing you. I know. But I'm not giving up. Not yet. Then something happened that changed everything. It was a Tuesday night. Late March. I was working late. Again. Most people had gone home. I was in my office reviewing a contract when I heard voices down the hall. The conference room. I recognized Todd's voice. And Margaret's. And Kyle's. The door was slightly open. I got up quietly. Moved closer. Stayed in the shadows where they couldn't see me. What I heard made my blood run cold. Todd was talking. We need to escalate this. He's not making it easy. Every time we try to make him look bad, he somehow turns it around. Margaret's voice, the problem is he's actually good at his job. That's making this harder than it should be. Kyle, then we need to manufacture a situation. Create a problem that's big enough to justify termination. Todd, like what? Kyle, performance review. We document every small issue. Build a file. Make it look like there's a pattern of poor judgment. Then when we terminate him, it's justified. Margaret, we've been building that file for months. But we need something bigger. A public failure. Something that makes Richard lose confidence in him. Todd, what if we sabotage his next big project? Make sure it fails? Then we can say he's not capable of handling major accounts. Kyle laughed. I like it. But we have to be careful. We can't leave any fingerprints. This has to look like his failure, not ours. They talked for another 15 minutes. Discussing details. Who would do what? How they'd cover their tracks. I stood there, heart pounding, recording every word on my phone. When they finally started packing up to leave, I slipped back to my office. Closed the door. Sat down in my chair. And for the first time since I started at Whitmore, I felt something other than frustration. I felt power. Because now I had proof. Undeniable, recorded proof that they were conspiring against me. And I was going to use it to destroy them. I didn't go home that night until after midnight. I sat in my office, organizing everything. The emails. The meeting notes. The IT logs. The recording. I created a comprehensive file. A timeline. A case. Then I called Lorraine Washington. She was an attorney I'd met at a networking event 2 years earlier. We'd stayed in touch. She specialized in employment discrimination and corporate fraud. Solo practitioner. Tough as nails. Black woman in her mid-40s who'd made a career out of taking on corporations and winning. Lorraine, it's Jerome Matthews. We met at the Urban League Gala in 2016. Jerome. Of course I remember. How are you? I'm in trouble. I need your help. Tell me everything. I did. Over the phone for an hour. Then I went to her office the next day and showed her everything. The documentation. The recording. The patterns. She listened quietly. Took notes. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and smiled. Jerome, this is one of the strongest cases I've ever seen. You have them dead to rights on multiple fronts. Employment discrimination. Conspiracy. retaliation. And based on what you've told me about Kyle accessing your files and having your assistant spy on you, we might even have a case for invasion of privacy. But here's my advice. Don't go to the board yet. We need to create a legal record first. File a formal complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. That does two things. 1, it creates an official record of discrimination. 2, it protects you from retaliation. If they fire you after you file, that's retaliation and it's illegal. We'll have them on multiple violations. How long does an EEOC investigation take? Months, usually. But that works in our favor. While they're investigating, you keep working. Keep documenting. And then, when the time is right, we hit them with the fraud evidence. The embezzlement. That's when we go to the board. And trust me, the board will care more about financial fraud than they will about discrimination. Sad but true. So that's what I did. On April 2nd, 2019, I filed a formal complaint with the EEOC. Detailed everything. The exclusion from meetings. The sabotage. The stolen ideas. The surveillance. The hostile work environment. The conspiracy I'd recorded. I included names, dates, evidence. The complaint was filed confidentially, so Whitmore wouldn't know immediately. But once the EEOC started their investigation, the company would be notified. And that's when things would get very interesting. I gave it 2 weeks. Then, on April 15th, I requested a meeting with Richard. Private. Just the two of us. His assistant scheduled it for that Friday afternoon. Late. After most people had gone home. I walked into his office at 5:30 p.m. He was sitting behind his desk. Looked tired. Jerome, what can I do for you? I didn't sit down. Didn't waste time with pleasantries. Richard, I need to talk to you about some serious issues in this company. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit. Please. I sat. He folded his hands. Looked at me with that practiced expression of concern. I'm listening. Over the past 10 months, I've been experiencing what I believe is a coordinated effort by certain executives to push me out of my position. Systematic exclusion from key meetings. Sabotage of my projects. Undermining of my authority. And I have extensive documentation of all of it. His expression didn't change. That's a serious accusation, Jerome. Do you have proof? I pulled out a folder. Set it on his desk. Emails. Meeting notes. IT logs showing unauthorized access to my files. Witness statements. And this. I pulled out my phone. Played the recording. Todd's voice filled the office. We need to escalate this. He's not making it easy. Then Margaret. The problem is he's actually good at his job. Then Kyle. Then we need to manufacture a situation. Create a problem that's big enough to justify termination. I let it play for 2 minutes. Then I stopped it. Richard's face had gone from neutral to red. Where did you get this? I was working late. Overheard them in the conference room. Recorded the conversation. He stared at the phone like it was a bomb. He paused, this is very concerning. It's more than concerning, Richard. It's illegal. And I've filed a formal complaint with the EEOC. His eyes snapped up to mine. You what? I filed an EEOC complaint. Detailed everything. The discrimination. The retaliation. The hostile work environment. And I have evidence to back up every claim. Richard stood up. Started pacing. You filed with the EEOC without coming to me first? With respect, Richard, I didn't think coming to you would be productive. Given that this has been going on for 10 months under your watch. He stopped pacing. Turned to face me. His face was purple now. Jerome, you've put me in a very difficult position. No, Richard. Todd, Margaret, and Kyle put you in a difficult position. I'm just trying to survive. And speaking of which, I'm not done. What else? In the course of documenting my case, I discovered something else. Financial irregularities involving those same 3 executives. Now I had his full attention. He sat back down. Slowly. What kind of irregularities? Fraud. Embezzlement. Fake expense reimbursements. Shell consulting companies billing for services never rendered. Conservatively, I estimate they've stolen close to $300,000 from this company over the past 5 years. You're lying. I wish I was. I pulled out another folder. Thicker this one. Set it on his desk next to the first one. It's all in there. Bank records. Cross-referenced calendars. Email trails. Invoices for consultants that don't exist. You can verify every single item. Richard opened the folder. Started flipping through pages. His hands were shaking. With each page, his face got redder. Finally, he looked up at me. Why are you bringing this to me? Why not go straight to the police? Or the board? Because despite everything, I believe in giving people a chance to do the right thing. You can handle this internally. Fire them. Make restitution to the company. Clean house. Or I can take this to the board and let them decide. And trust me, the board will not be happy to learn that their executives have been stealing and that the CEO either didn't know or didn't care. He stared at me for a long moment. I could see the calculations happening behind his eyes. Finally, he spoke. You realize what you're doing, don't you? You're threatening me. I'm giving you options. Richard leaned forward. Jerome, let me be frank with you. Those 3 people, Todd, Margaret, Kyle, they've been with me for years. They're family. Not blood, but close enough. They've helped build this company. And you're talented, no question. But you came in and disrupted everything. Made people uncomfortable. Changed processes that had worked for years. You didn't try to fit in. You tried to remake everything in your image. I felt cold fury building in my chest. So because I'm black, because I don't play golf at the country club, because I actually try to improve things instead of maintaining the status quo, I deserve to be sabotaged? Conspired against? That's not what I said. But you have to understand how they see it. You're an outsider. You came in with a mandate from me and you didn't earn their respect. You demanded it. I earned my respect by doing excellent work. By delivering results. By bringing in revenue. By saving this company money. But none of that mattered because I don't look like them. I don't come from their world. And they decided from day one that I didn't belong. Richard sighed. Rubbed his face. Jerome, look. I think it's best if we part ways. I'll give you a generous severance package. 6 months' salary. Strong letter of recommendation. You walk away quietly, we handle the fraud internally, and everyone moves on. No lawyers. No EEOC. No board involvement. Clean break. I stood up. Looked him right in the eye. Richard, let me be very clear. I'm not going anywhere. You're going to fire Todd, Margaret, and Kyle. You're going to issue a public statement acknowledging the hostile environment I've faced. You're going to promote me to Chief Operating Officer with appropriate compensation. And you're going to implement real diversity and inclusion initiatives in this company. Or I go to the board with everything. The discrimination. The conspiracy. The fraud. And your attempt to cover it all up by paying me off. How do you think that will play with the board? How do you think it will play in the press when this inevitably leaks? Richard stood up. Slowly. His face had gone from red to purple. "You're making the biggest mistake of your career." "No, Richard. You made the mistake. When you hired me to be a token instead of a leader. When you looked the other way while your executives tried to destroy me. When you chose loyalty to them over what's right." I gave him one more look. Then I walked out. I didn't hear from Richard that weekend. I spent Saturday and Sunday with my family. Tried to relax. Tried not to think about what was coming. But I knew. I knew the war was just beginning. And I was ready. Monday morning, I arrived at the office at 7 a.m. There was an email waiting for me. From Kyle Henderson. Subject, mandatory meeting. The email requested my presence in the HR conference room at 9 a.m. to discuss performance concerns. I forwarded it to Lorraine immediately. She called me within minutes. "They're going to try to fire you. Don't go in there alone." "I'm coming." She arrived at 8:45. We walked into that conference room together at exactly 9 a.m. Kyle was there. So was Margaret. And Richard. And a lawyer I didn't recognize. Thin man in his 60s. Expensive suit. Corporate attorney written all over him. The room went silent when Lorraine walked in with me. Kyle recovered first. "I'm sorry, but this is an internal meeting." Lorraine set her briefcase on the table. "I'm Lorraine Washington, Mr. Matthews' legal counsel. And before we proceed, I want to remind everyone in this room that my client has filed a formal EEOC complaint alleging systematic discrimination and retaliation. Any adverse employment action taken against him from this point forward will be considered illegal retaliation under federal law. And we will pursue every available remedy." The corporate attorney cleared his throat. "I'm Gerald Hastings, outside counsel for Whitmore Associates. And I have to say, this meeting is highly irregular. We should reschedule." Lorraine smiled. Her shark smile. "We're all here now. Let's proceed." Kyle looked at Richard. Richard looked at Gerald. Gerald looked at his notes. Finally, Richard spoke. "Jerome, we've asked you here today to discuss some performance concerns that have been brought to our attention." "What performance concerns?" Lorraine asked. "Mr. Matthews has consistently exceeded his performance targets. His division is the most profitable in the company. He's brought in record revenue. So please, enumerate these alleged concerns." Kyle pulled out a folder. "Over the past several months, we've received feedback that Mr. Matthews has been difficult to work with. That his leadership style is," he paused, "aggressive. That he makes unilateral decisions without proper consultation." "From whom?" I asked. "Who specifically provided this feedback?" Kyle hesitated. "Multiple sources." "Names," I said. "I want names. And specific examples. With dates. Because I have documentation of every major decision I've made, and I can show you that I followed proper protocols for all of them." Margaret spoke up. "This isn't about any one incident, Jerome. It's about a pattern." "A pattern of what?" I pulled out my own folder. "Because I have a pattern too. A pattern of being excluded from meetings. A pattern of my ideas being stolen and presented by others. A pattern of my projects being sabotaged. A pattern of surveillance and conspiracy. Should we discuss that pattern?" Gerald held up his hand. "I think we need to pause this conversation. Mr. Matthews, Ms. Washington, can you give us the room for a moment?" Lorraine and I stepped outside. Stood in the hallway. She was smiling. "They've got nothing. They thought they could intimidate you into quitting, but they have no grounds for termination. This is good." 5 minutes later, the door opened. Gerald asked us back in. Richard spoke. "Jerome, we're not terminating you. We're simply trying to address some concerns about team dynamics. Going forward, we'd like to see more collaborative decision-making. Lorraine cut him off. Let's be very clear about what just happened here. You called Mr. Matthews into a meeting under the pretense of performance issues. You had outside counsel present, which indicates you were prepared to terminate him. But when faced with actual evidence of his performance and the legal implications of his EEOC complaint, you're now backing down. So let me make something very clear to all of you. Mr. Matthews is an excellent executive who has been subjected to a hostile work environment. He has extensive documentation of this hostility. He has recordings of your executives conspiring against him. And he will not be resigning. He will not be terminated. He will continue to do his job, and any attempt to retaliate against him will result in immediate legal action. Do I make myself clear? The room was silent. Then Richard stood up. This meeting is over. Jerome, you can go back to work. As Lorraine and I walked out, I could hear them arguing behind the closed door. Lorraine turned to me in the hallway. Now we wait. The EEOC investigation will take a few months. During that time, document everything. Every interaction. Every meeting. Every email. And when they inevitably try something else, we'll be ready. Over the next 2 weeks, the office atmosphere changed. People avoided me. Conversations would stop when I walked into a room. Todd, Margaret, and Kyle stayed as far away from me as possible. I could feel the hostility. But I also felt something else. Respect. Some people, the younger employees especially, started looking at me differently. Like I was someone who'd stood up to power and survived. Shanice came to my office one afternoon. Closed the door. Mr. Matthews, I just want you to know that there are people here who respect what you're doing. We've seen how they've treated you. And we're glad you're fighting back. Thank you, Shanice. That means a lot. She hesitated. Then she said, there's something else you should know. I've been hearing things. What things? They're planning something. I don't know what exactly. But Kyle has been having a lot of closed-door meetings with the corporate attorney. And I heard Margaret on the phone last week talking about restructuring. Like they're planning to eliminate your position. I filed that information away. Told Lorraine. She wasn't surprised. They're going to try to reorganize so they can claim your position is redundant. Classic move. But we'll be ready for that too. Then, in early May, I got a call from Charles Livingston. He was one of the board members. 72 years old. Retired CEO of a manufacturing company. He'd been on Whitmore's board for 15 years. Jerome, this is Charles Livingston. I'm on the board at Whitmore. Do you have time to meet? Just the two of us? Of course. When and where? How about tomorrow? There's a coffee shop in Buckhead. Neutral territory. I'll text you the address. We met the next afternoon. He was already there when I arrived. Tall man. Full head of white hair. Wearing khakis and a polo shirt. He stood when I approached. Jerome. Thank you for coming. We sat down. He got right to it. I've been hearing some very disturbing things. About you. About the company. And I want to hear your side directly. I told him everything. The full story. The discrimination. The sabotage. The conspiracy. The fraud. I showed him the documentation. The recording. The financial evidence. He listened without interrupting. Took notes. When I finished, he sat back and let out a long breath. Jerome, I'm going to be honest with you. I've known Richard for 20 years. He's a good man in many ways. But he has a blind spot. He's too loyal to the wrong people. Always has been. And what you've described, if it's true, and I have no reason to doubt you, this is catastrophic. Not just for those 3 executives, but for the company as a whole. It's all true. Every word. And it's all documented. Why didn't you come to the board sooner? I wanted to give Richard a chance to handle it internally. And honestly, I wasn't sure the board would believe me over executives who've been here for years. Charles nodded. I understand. But you should know, you're not the first. What do you mean? This is the third time in 5 years that we've had a diversity hire, as Richard calls them, experience significant problems. The other 2 quit before it got to this point. But there's been a pattern. And some of us on the board have been concerned. We just didn't have proof. Now you have proof. Yes. Now we have proof. Charles, what happens next? I'm going to call an emergency board meeting. We'll hear from you directly. You'll present your evidence. And then we'll decide what action to take. When? As soon as possible. I'll be in touch. 2 days later, Richard called me into his office. He looked terrible. Like he hadn't slept in days. Jerome, sit down. I sat. He didn't meet my eyes. The board has called an emergency meeting. They want you to present your findings. About the discrimination and the fraud. I know. Charles Livingston told me. Richard looked up sharply. You've been talking to Charles? He reached out to me. Said he wanted to hear my side. Richard's jaw clenched. You went around me. To the board. I gave you a chance to fix this, Richard. You chose to protect your people instead. So yes, I went to the board. That's my right. Richard stood up. Started pacing. You realize what you're doing, don't you? You're destroying this company. Everything my grandfather built. Everything my father maintained. You're tearing it down. No, Richard. Todd, Margaret, and Kyle are tearing it down. By stealing from the company. By creating a toxic culture. By breaking the law. I'm trying to save it. Richard stopped. Looked at me with something like hatred. You want to know the truth, Jerome? I never wanted to hire you. The board pressured me. Said we needed diversity. So I brought you in. Gave you a chance. And what did you do? You came in like you owned the place. Challenged everything. Made my team uncomfortable. And now you're trying to destroy them. I stood up. Looked him right in the eye. I came in and did my job. Exceptionally well. The only reason your team is uncomfortable is because I'm black and I refuse to know my place. And yes, I'm going to testify to the board. I'm going to tell them everything. And whatever happens after that is on you, not me. The board meeting was scheduled for the following Monday, May 20th, 2019. It was held at the board chairman's law firm. Neutral territory. All 7 board members were present. Charles Livingston, Patricia Simmons, David Cross, Helen Montgomery, Robert Kane, Susan Fisher, and Marcus Webb. Richard was there too. And Gerald Hastings, the corporate attorney. I brought Lorraine. The room was tense. The board chairman, David Cross, called the meeting to order. He was in his 70s. Senior partner at one of Atlanta's oldest law firms. We're here today to hear testimony from Jerome Matthews regarding allegations of discrimination, hostile work environment, and financial fraud at Whitmore Associates. Mr. Matthews, you have the floor. I stood. Took a breath. And I told them everything. From the beginning. The job offer. The first few months when everything seemed fine. Then the slow escalation. The missing emails. The excluded meetings. The stolen ideas. The fake complaints. I showed them the documentation. Every email. Every calendar entry. Every witness statement. Then I played the recording. Todd's voice. Margaret's voice. Kyle's voice. Conspiring to destroy me. The room was silent. I could see the board members' faces. Shock. Anger. Disgust. Then I moved to the fraud. Showed them the financial evidence. The fake expense reports. The shell companies. The embezzlement. Showed them exactly how much money Todd, Margaret, and Kyle had stolen. And showed them the timeline of when it happened and how Richard should have caught it. When I finished, I sat down. The room was completely silent. Finally, Patricia Simmons spoke. Richard, did you know about any of this? The discrimination? The conspiracy? Richard shifted in his seat. I knew Jerome had filed an EEOC complaint. I was trying to handle it quietly. Internally. That's not what I asked. Did you know your executives were actively conspiring to force him out? Richard hesitated. I had heard there were tensions. But I didn't think it was this serious. Patricia's voice was ice. You didn't think a conspiracy to manufacture grounds for termination was serious? What about the fraud? Charles Livingston asked. Did you know they were stealing from the company? Richard looked down. I had suspicions about some expense irregularities, but I didn't have proof, and I didn't want to believe it. So you chose to protect them instead of investigating, Patricia said. And in doing so, you exposed this company to massive legal liability. Richard, I've known you for 20 years. But this is unacceptable. Helen Montgomery, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. I want to hear from the three executives in question. Are they here? They're not, Gerald Hastings said. We didn't think it was appropriate given the nature of the allegations. Patricia cut him off. Get them here. Now. I want to hear what they have to say. Gerald made some calls. 45 minutes later, Todd, Margaret, and Kyle arrived. They looked nervous. David Cross addressed them. We've heard some very serious allegations against the three of you. Conspiracy to create a hostile work environment, retaliation, and financial fraud. What do you have to say? Todd spoke first. With all due respect, this is one person's version of events. Jerome has an agenda. He's trying to deflect from his own performance issues by making accusations against us. I have recordings of you conspiring, I said quietly. Todd's face went pale. I played 30 seconds of the recording. His voice. Margaret's voice. Kyle's voice. Planning my destruction. When it finished, the room was silent. Margaret tried next. We may have vented some frustrations. But that doesn't mean we actually did anything wrong. We didn't sabotage his work. We didn't retaliate. I pulled out the IT logs. Showing Kyle accessing my files after hours. Showing him instructing my assistant to spy on me. Kyle's face went white. As for the fraud, Patricia Simmons said, holding up the financial documents, would you like to explain these? The fake expense reports? The shell consulting companies? Margaret opened her mouth. Closed it. Looked at Gerald. Gerald looked at the documents. Then he looked at his clients. I need to speak with my clients privately. Now. They left the room. Were gone for 20 minutes. When they came back, Gerald spoke. My clients invoked their Fifth Amendment rights and will not be answering questions about the financial allegations without immunity. The board members looked at each other. Then David Cross spoke. This meeting is adjourned. The board will convene an executive session to discuss next steps. Jerome, Lorraine, thank you for your testimony. You'll hear from us shortly. We left. Walked out of that building into the bright May afternoon. Lorraine turned to me. That went as well as it possibly could have. They have no defense. The board is going to act. How long? Days, not weeks. They have to. This is too big to sit on. She was right. 3 days later, on Thursday, May 23rd, I got a call from Charles Livingston. Jerome, the board has made some decisions. I'm calling to inform you directly before the official announcement. We've terminated Todd Brennan, Margaret Chen, and Kyle Henderson. Effective immediately. They were escorted out of the building this morning. We've also placed Richard Whitmore on probationary status. He'll remain as CEO for now, but his authority is significantly curtailed. And we've created a new position. Chief Operating Officer. The board would like to offer you that position, Jerome, with a compensation package commensurate with the role. My hands were shaking. I accept. Good. We're also implementing a full review of company policies and procedures, diversity and inclusion initiatives, financial controls, reporting structures. We want you to lead that effort. When can you start? I already have, Charles. Thank you for believing me. You earned it, Jerome. You stood up when it would have been easier to walk away. That takes courage. And this company needs more people like you. That afternoon, the company-wide email went out. From David Cross, board chairman. Subject, leadership changes. The email announced the terminations, cited performance issues and violations of company policy. Didn't mention the fraud specifically, but everyone knew. Announced my promotion to COO. Said the company was committed to creating a more inclusive and equitable workplace. The office was chaos. People were shocked. Some were angry. Some were relieved. I got dozens of emails. Some congratulating me. Some accusing me of destroying people's careers. I ignored the negative ones. Focused on the work. Because there was a lot of work to do. Over the next 6 months, I restructured the entire operations division. Brought in new talent. Promoted Shanice to Director of Analytics. She deserved it. Implemented new financial controls. New reporting structures. Transparency became the watchword. Every expense report had to be reviewed by 2 people. Every consulting contract had to be validated. Every major decision had to be documented. The old boys club was dead. And I made sure everyone knew it. The company thrived. Our revenue increased by 22% in the first year. Client satisfaction scores went up. Employee retention improved, especially among women and people of color who suddenly felt like they had a future at Whitmore. And slowly, painfully, the culture changed. It wasn't easy. There were people who resented me, who missed the old days. Some left. Good riddance. But many stayed. And new people came. People who wanted to work in a place where merit mattered more than connections. Where your ideas were judged on their value, not on who proposed them. Where you could succeed regardless of what you looked like or where you came from. As for Todd, Margaret, and Kyle, I heard through the grapevine what happened to them. Todd tried to start his own consulting firm. Called it Brennan Strategies. Rented office space in Midtown. Printed fancy business cards. But word had gotten around. About the fraud. About the conspiracy. Clients didn't trust him. His firm lasted 11 months before he had to shut it down. Last I heard, he was working as a regional manager at a logistics company. Making maybe a third of what he used to make. Living in a smaller house. Driving a used car instead of a Lexus. His wife left him. Took the kids. He posts on LinkedIn sometimes. Motivational quotes about resilience and reinvention. Nobody engages. Margaret moved to Charlotte. Got a job at a mid-sized firm there. But the allegations followed her. Background checks turned up the termination. The fraud investigation. She lasted 6 months before they let her go. She's working now, but at a much smaller company, making less than half what she made at Whitmore. She'll never work at a major firm again. The stain is permanent. Kyle's story is the saddest. He couldn't find work anywhere in HR. Every background check turned up the embezzlement, the ethical violations. He tried to rebrand himself as a consultant. That didn't work either. Eventually, he left the corporate world entirely. Went back to school. Got a teaching certificate. He's teaching high school now. Business classes. Making $40,000 a year. Living in a small apartment. His college football glory days feel like a lifetime ago. I don't feel good about what happened to them. I'm not vindictive. But I also don't feel bad. They made their choices. They chose to steal. They chose to conspire. They chose to try to destroy me. And they paid the price. Richard Whitmore stayed on as CEO for 2 more years. But the board kept him on a tight leash. Every major decision had to be approved. Every financial report had to be verified. He was essentially a figurehead. In 2021, he announced his retirement. Said he wanted to spend more time with family. The truth was, the board had lost confidence in him. He was being pushed out. Gently, but pushed nonetheless. At his retirement party, I shook his hand. Thanked him for giving me the opportunity. He looked at me and said, "You know, Jerome, I think I misjudged you. You were exactly what this company needed. I just couldn't see it at the time. I appreciate that, Richard." He paused. Then he said, "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For not protecting you. For not standing up for what was right. I should have." I nodded. Accepted his apology. But I didn't forget. After Richard left, the board offered me the CEO position. I was surprised. Honored. But I turned it down. Charles Livingston called me personally. "Jerome, why? You've earned this. You've transformed this company. You deserve to lead it." I appreciate that, Charles. But I've spent 3 years fighting for my place at this company. I don't want to spend the rest of my career here. I want to build something new. Something of my own. What are you going to do? Start my own firm. Focus on helping other companies do what we did here. Diversity. Inclusion. Cultural transformation. There are a lot of companies that need that help. And I think I can make a bigger impact working with multiple organizations than staying at one. Charles was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I understand. And I respect that. But know that you'll always have a place here if you change your mind." I negotiated a transition plan. Stayed on as COO for 1 more year. Trained my replacement, a brilliant woman named Claudia Reeves. She'd been at the company for 7 years. Director of Client Services. She was black. She was qualified. And she was ready. I made sure the transition was smooth. Made sure she had the support she needed. Made sure the culture we'd built would continue after I left. In June of 2022, I left Whitmore Associates. Walked out of that building for the last time as an employee. Started my own firm. Matthews Consulting Group. We specialize in organizational transformation. Helping companies diversify their leadership. Root out toxic cultures. Implement real, sustainable change. I brought in experts. Built a team. We didn't just talk about diversity. We implemented systems to ensure it. Accountability mechanisms. Transparent processes. Merit-based advancement. And it worked. Within the first year, we had 12 clients. Fortune 500 companies who realized they needed to change or die. Companies that had their own Todd Brennans and Margaret Chens. Companies where talented people of color were hitting invisible ceilings. We helped them break through those ceilings. 5 years later, Matthews Consulting Group has 40 employees and $30 million in annual revenue. We've worked with over 100 companies. We've helped promote hundreds of executives of color into leadership positions. We've helped eliminate billions of dollars in potential legal liability by fixing toxic cultures before they exploded. And we've proven that diversity isn't just the right thing to do morally. It's the smart thing to do financially. Companies with diverse leadership perform better. Period. That's not opinion. That's data. But here's what I really want you to understand. This story isn't just about me winning. It's about what it takes to survive when the system is rigged against you. I could have quit. God knows I thought about it. There were nights I came home so angry, so exhausted, so defeated that I didn't think I could go back. Nights when Denise held me while I cried from frustration. Nights when I questioned whether it was worth it. Whether I should just walk away. Find somewhere easier. Somewhere less hostile. But I didn't. Because quitting would have meant they won. And I wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. I documented everything. Every email. Every slight. Every sabotage. I built my case. Methodically. Carefully. I found allies. People like Shanice who were willing to tell the truth. People like Charles Livingston who were willing to listen. I played the long game. Didn't react emotionally. Didn't lash out. Stayed professional even when they were trying to destroy me. And when the moment came, when I finally had leverage, I struck hard and fast. No mercy. No hesitation. Because I knew they wouldn't have shown me any. That's the reality of corporate America for black executives. You have to be twice as good to get half as far. You have to document everything because your word alone won't be enough. You have to anticipate the attacks and prepare your defense. You have to build relationships with people in power who can vouch for you. And when you finally have leverage, you have to use it. Decisively. Completely. Because if you don't, they'll come at you again. But here's the other truth. The truth that makes me angry even now, years later. I shouldn't have had to do any of that. I should have been able to just do my job. Excel at my work. Be judged on my merit. Rise based on my performance. But that's not the world we live in. Not yet, anyway. Maybe someday. But not today. So to every black professional out there facing what I faced, here's my advice. First, document everything. Every conversation. Every email. Every meeting. Every slight. Keep a journal. Back up your files. Build your case from day one. Because if things go bad, you'll need proof. Second, find your allies. They're out there. Other people of color who understand what you're going through. White allies who recognize injustice and are willing to stand with you. Board members or senior leaders who care more about the truth than politics. You can't fight alone. You need support. Third, know your rights. Understand employment law. Know what discrimination looks like. Know what retaliation is. Know when to escalate to HR, to the EEOC, to an attorney. The law isn't perfect, but it does provide some protection. Use it. Fourth, take care of yourself. The stress of fighting discrimination while trying to excel at your job is overwhelming. You'll be exhausted. Angry. Scared. Make sure you have support at home. A partner, family, friends who can hold you up when you feel like collapsing. Go to therapy if you need to. There's no shame in that. I did. It helped. Fifth, pick your battles. Not every microaggression is worth fighting. Not every slight requires a response. You have to decide what you can live with and what you can't. What's worth the fight and what's just noise. Save your energy for the battles that matter. And sixth, when you do fight, fight to win. Don't fight halfway. Don't hope for a compromise. When you decide to take them on, Go all in. Gather your evidence. Build your case. Find your allies. And then strike with everything you have. Because they will not hold back. And neither should you. But most importantly, remember this. You deserve to be in that room. You earned your seat at that table. Your ideas are valuable. Your perspective matters. And no one has the right to make you feel otherwise. Don't ever forget that. Don't ever let them convince you you're not good enough. Because you are. You're more than good enough. You're exactly what they need, even if they're too blind to see it. That's what Uncle Tyrone's Chronicles is all about. Real stories. Real struggles. Real victories. This was mine. I was the only black executive at a company that didn't want me there. They tried everything to push me out. And I didn't just survive. I won. Then I built something even better. I'm 57 years old now. I have a successful consulting firm. I have a wife I love and 2 kids I'm incredibly proud of. Marcus just finished his MBA. He's working in finance in New York, making his own way. Jasmine is a teacher, following in her mother's footsteps, teaching 4th grade in Atlanta, making a difference every single day. And I sleep well at night, because I know that 3 people who tried to destroy me ended up destroying themselves. Not because of me, but because of their own choices, their own greed, their own hatred. I just held up a mirror and made sure everyone could see who they really were. That's not revenge. That's justice. And sometimes, in this world, justice is the sweetest victory of all. I still think about those 3 years sometimes. Usually late at night when I can't sleep. I think about the stress, the anger, the fear, the constant feeling of being under siege. But I also think about what I learned. About resilience. About strategy. About the importance of knowing your worth even when everyone around you is trying to convince you you're worthless. And I think about the people I've helped since then. The executives I've mentored who were facing their own Todd Brennans and Margaret Chans. The companies I've transformed where people of color now have real opportunities. The young professionals who've told me that hearing my story gave them courage to keep fighting. That's the real legacy. Not the money. Not the title. Not the satisfaction of watching my enemies fall. But the fact that I survived, thrived, and then turned around to help others do the same. Because that's what we do. We lift as we climb. We clear the path for those behind us. We make it just a little bit easier for the next person. And slowly, painfully, one battle at a time, we change the system. It's not enough. Not nearly enough. There's so much more work to do. So many more battles to fight. So many more people who need support. But it's something. It's progress. And I'll take progress over perfection any day. Because perfection isn't coming in my lifetime. But progress? Progress we can make. One company at a time. One executive at a time. One victory at a time. So yeah, I was the only black executive at Whitmore Associates. And yeah, they tried to push me out. They sabotaged me. They conspired against me. They stole from me. They tried to break me. But I didn't break. I bent. I adapted. I fought. And I won. That's my story. That's my chronicle. And I tell it not to brag. Not to claim I'm special or unique. But to remind you that you're stronger than you think. Smarter than they give you credit for. More resilient than you know. And you deserve every opportunity you've earned. Don't let anyone take that from you. Don't let them make you doubt yourself. Don't let them push you out. Stand your ground. Document everything. Build your case. Find your allies. And when the time comes, fight back. Not with anger. With evidence. With strategy. With precision. Because that's how you win. Not just for yourself, but for everyone who comes after you. So that's my story. But now I want to hear from you. Did you like this chronicle? What would you have done if you were in my position? Would you have fought back, or would you have walked away? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. And tell me, where are you listening to this story from right now? Drop your location in the comments. I love knowing where Uncle Tyrone's Chronicles is reaching. If you enjoyed this story, do me a favor. Hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Click that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story. Trust me, I've got more chronicles coming that you won't want to miss. And before you go, check out the video I'm recommending for you next. I think you're really going to like it. Until next time, this is Uncle Tyrone, reminding you to stand strong, fight smart, and never let anyone tell you you don't belong. Peace.